learn that. And also learning about the location and learning about people that may have died there at a location.
How do you know when you're on an investigation whether or not the people are seeking their 15 minutes of fame, or if they have in fact paranormal activity happening in their place?
Well, in some of the cases, whenever you have somebody that's, as you said, wanting their 15 minutes of fame, they will mention their name again and again and always ask if they can be brought up in any article. And it's more about a sense of pride or a sense of vanity, so to speak. Usually the people that tend to have a sincere interest in the paranormal, they're not going to be doing the attention-seeking, if that makes any sense. And after a while, you tend to get an understanding of that.
So when you go to a place and you, based on your experience and the experience of your team, feel that this person is just looking for their 15 minutes of fame, how do you break it to them that the gig is up, you know what they're trying to do, and salut, goodbye?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily call them on it. I don't want to be rude. And again, whenever I said that whenever we interview people, we be courteous, we be kind, because if we're nasty to people, they're going to spread the word, and it might ruin our reputation. We just don't necessarily take what they say. You know, we may take it with a grain of salt, but I try to go to at least 4 or 5 different sources to try to find some of the valid and some of the accurate history of an event or of a haunting. And again, it's good to be able to find independent sources. So, and again, going back to the actually interviewing a number of people that has a connection with the location, and you can find that in any number of places. And one place that people tend to overlook is a lot of the hauntings and things take place years and years in the past. It's been around for a long time. Historians, people like at a genealogical society, people at a senior center, things along those lines, those people would have a plethora of information that's sometimes overlooked.
So let's say you're in a house and you've determined with your team that this isn't a legitimate claim, that you want to continue or deepen your investigation. You've done your interviews, you've done your research. Now, what kind of equipment would you use to conduct the investigation where you could gather evidence? Well,
you can make a paranormal kit, if you want to call it that. You can make a paranormal kit as expensive or as cheaply as you want it to. I've got about 11 different items that I would feel would be crucial in conducting a lengthy, full-blown investigation. And some of the things that most paranormal investigators, especially those who are fairly new to it, will overlook. One of the most important pieces is also one of the simplest. Simple pen and paper. A lot of people, they don't tend to bring something like that. It can be used to document information about a haunting. It can document the date, the location, and the time of an investigation. It's just something to just jot down some notes, which you can type out in a report at a later time. I would definitely have that. Another one, again, these are common sense, would be a flashlight.
Yeah.
A lot of the places that are allegedly haunted or actually haunted, they're abandoned. They may not have power. And again, it's overlooked by people new to ghost hunting. And again, I would suggest like a small LED light, flashlight that wouldn't take up a lot of space, but it's very, very bright. Something that would take AAA batteries. Another thing would be camera. A digital camera. What I would recommend would be to have a camera of at least 10 to 12 megapixels to take clean shots of an area, so that whenever you go take the SD card back to the computer, you can zoom in, you can see on the computer screen any kind of apparitions or other, say, orbs or misty forms that you may have not been able to pick up on the small screen of the camera.
I would also caution anyone who is planning to do an actual ghost investigation to always get permission if you're going on private property, and always treat other people's property with the utmost respect.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be one of the most important things to do about an investigation. Be respectful of any place that you're going to go to. Again, your reputation as a paranormal investigator is going to be on the line. If you treat a location and an owner of a location with respect and dignity, there's a good chance they would invite you back or even refer you to other hauntings, other places that may be haunted.
Plus, don't forget,
that's probably rule number one.
Plus, don't forget, trespassing is against the law, and you can get yourself into a lot of problems.
Absolutely. And not just that, if you trespass or even go to a location that's out, that's away from, I don't know, out in the country that may not have many neighbors, that's going to be on wooded property, if you go there without letting somebody know, if there's an accident, somebody getting hurt, somebody breaking a leg, so on and so forth, what's going to happen is that you may be trapped out there. It's always important that before you go to a location, let somebody know where you're going, and maybe to make periodic calls or at least periodic contact to let the other person know that you're okay.
Common sense is the rule of the day.
Yes, what you need to do is be respectful, not gullible. You need to be open-minded rather than just every time you hear a bump or every time you see a shadow. It's not, all of it's not going to be paranormal. We need to be able to discern the difference between something that's natural and something that's supernatural.
Exonation, Richard Southall is my special guest this hour. He is the author of How to Be a Ghost Hunter and Haunted Route 66, Ghosts of America's Legendary Highway. And coming in the spring of 2015, a brand new book published by our good friends at Llewellyn, Haunted Plantations of the South. You can find all Richard's books at www.llewellyn.com. Tell me, in your opinion, what are orbs?
Okay, I just think it's residual energy of an area. I think that it might be indicative of a haunting, but in and of itself, it may not absolutely be where an apparition could be found. I just think if once you rule out whether it's dust or a bug or something along those lines, once you can get the orbs, that might be a place where you can do more of an investigation. Some of the other pieces of equipment that I would mention to use would be a camera, would be a digital recorder, even just a digital thermometer. If you find a place that has a heavy concentration of orbs, what you can do is use the digital thermometer, and you'll notice that the temperature would at least be a few degrees lower, which, once you've got that, you can document that on your pen and paper. I think it's more of a residual energy.
You and I were talking during the commercial break with the news a little while ago about some of the reality TV shows that are out there. Since the onslaught of all these different ghost shows, paranormal research shows, ghost hunters, ghosty girls, and so on, have these programs been an asset to paranormal investigators or a hindrance?
I think it would be both. In regards to being an asset, more people are becoming open-minded about the paranormal. They would be more willing to speak to some paranormal investigators about some experiences they've had. But on the other hand, as a detriment, people who are just mainstream, that don't have a lot of experience doing paranormal investigations, they think that every bit of an investigation is going to be just like the television shows. And that's not necessarily the case. Will there be events where you can absolutely say a poltergeist activity or have a direct apparition? Absolutely. But it's not going to happen every time.
It's just like police surveillance. it's boring and I should say it's tedious and sometimes boring, but it has to get done in order to get the evidence that you're seeking.
Absolutely, and I think whenever you're doing a video recording, taking photographs, doing a digital recording, so on and so forth, be expected in some cases not to find anything. A lot of people that are paranormal investigators, they get discouraged when that happens, but whenever you do find some proof of that, that's whenever you hit pay dirt. That's why you do. That's the whole purpose of why you do the investigation, for that excitement, for that one moment where you've got something that's tangible.
Speaking about digital equipment, there's a lot of talk about EVPs and their legitimacy. What's your take on it?
Well, I've been able to record some EVPs. Actually, two or three of the places that I've investigated in the last year and a half, I've been able to pick up some very good EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon. And it goes back to what we were talking about with the residual energy, with the recording. I think in some cases, not only would the apparition show up, but in some cases you can get the recording of somebody speaking, of a gunshot, of a train derailment, so on and so forth. Whenever you hear that and you are able to put that onto the computer and able to listen to it again and again, you'd be amazed at what you can pick up. And with the digital recorder, you may not hear it whenever you play it back in the field, but you would be able to hear it once you upload it to the computer.
So your preference is digital over analog?
Yes. I mean, I've seen both. I mean, in the past I've used both, but I prefer digital. That way, again, it's easier to upload, easier to analyze. But in some cases, the microcassette player, that works as well, depending on the circumstances, depending on what people on personal preference. So.
All right, Richard, stand by. You and I have to take our final break for this hour. Exonation Richard Southall is our guest. He's the author of How to Be a Ghost Hunter and Haunted Route 66, Ghosts of America's Legendary Highway. He also has a brand new book coming out in the spring of 2015, Haunted Plantations of the South. Now, you can purchase any of Richard's books at one place, Llewellyn.com. That's www.llewellyn.com. That's www.llewellyn.com. Richard and I will be back on the other side of this short commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't forget the app for the X Zone Radio TV show is available now on iTunes as well as for Android at Google Play. And by the way, the apps are free as well as the shows. We'll be back. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com.